move.
Yes, guys, welcome back. Another episode of Teams Like Brighton, and I don't know about you, Richie. It definitely was a glass half empty scenario for us. It feels like a 2 points dropped.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Brighton were definitely the better team. It was a really interesting spectacle because Leeds have been used to, I think it's fair to say, having a very pressing attacking style where they win the ball from you sort of in your own half. So to sort of see the dynamic where they were literally told to stand off, but then the crowd like going boo, like go get them, was like an interesting one because the Leeds manager, that was the tactic. They knew that Brighton would tear them apart if they invited them on, fall into that trap, and then Brighton outnumber them further up the pitch. So it was actually, I thought, a decent tactical effort from Leeds. I think the disappointing part from Brighton is obviously twofold really. To go ahead twice and to surrender that lead twice is pretty disappointing. Also, it's kind of like Brighton switched off for both goals really. Veltman was robbed by Harrison on the wing. And then, it was a little bit fortuitous Leeds' goal. Obviously, it was a good strike from Bamford, but to get that deflection from Webster that probably took it out of Jason Steele's reach, I don't know if it's hard to say, but it might have, still maybe might have got to it. So that, and that went off under the bar. And then Brighton were caught napping really for the second goal. Obviously, a short corner from Leeds, and then Harrison killed that into the corner after his own goal from earlier. So, yeah, it's definitely a case of Brighton had more than 60% possession. It was fairly even in terms of like shots on goal, but I think the real clear-cut chances were definitely more towards Brighton. I think Leeds had a fair few sort of half chances, but no massive ones, I'd say. Well, just in terms of like scale, I think Brighton had more. So, obviously results around them were, not too bad. Obviously Liverpool lost, Fulham lost, Brentford lost, but then I think Newcastle and Spurs won. So, sort of mixed emotions. It was, I think hopefully Brighton can learn from this and then you use that to sort of, right the wrongs from this game ahead of Palace on Wednesday. What about you?
Yeah, it's just all around just very, very frustrating because you just got this feeling at the end of the game where the players just looks quite jaded. They knew that they were probably going to get an absolute ticking off from De Zerbi. They knew that they should have come out of this with 3 points, and I think it would have been even worse by the fact that by the time the results came out, they were seeing, geez, we could have cut the lead against Liverpool. We could have increased the gap against Fulham. We could have. There were a lot of other factors into this that just added that. While it kind of like saved our blushes a little bit, you can look at it on the other side. And go, well, yeah, but if we didn't drop those 2 points, it would have, the benefits would have magnitudes by that much. So it's just one of those matches where it's just like we came, we saw, but we didn't conquer. We should have easily. I think. I got to say on the side note, Jesus, Bamford's goal was beautiful. I'm really annoyed at saying that, but my God, it was such a good goal.
To be fair, both Leeds' goals were really well taken, like really sweet connections.
They really were. I don't think Steele could do much about either of them really. But it was just Bamford's one, just underside of the crossbar, bounced down and up. It's one of those magical goals that you get. It's kind of like it's a downgraded version of Tony Yeboah's goal. That's how I can only justify it.
That's big praise, man.
I mean, like I said, downgraded. Yeah. Like nothing will be as good as Tony Yeboah's goal. I mean, that was just that's something that's going to be folklore. But Bamford's was just
which one? But yeah, go on.
Which one? They're all bangers from Tony Yeboah. Yeah. But it's just again that frustrating moment where we had plenty. I think we had enough chances. I think we had the better of the chances. While the stats say, like you say, it's even Stevens. We had the clear-cut chances, and once again, we're in this position where we're just frustrated. And I don't want this result to come back and bite us. And I think that has to be a way for us to move on and just get the win against Palace. If we win, then the point looks good because it's 4 points out of 6. But anything less, then it's not going to help us out. But I did enjoy De Zerbi's comments after the game. Man's very honest. Very honest. Like, his assessments are fantastic. We'll go through in a bit, but I just want to say, like, how refreshing it is to have a manager who's not exactly PR trained and he's not exactly doing mind games. He's very, very honest in the circumstances. You know, I remember at Leicester when we should have had a penalty and De Zerbi was like going to the interview, well, what do you think it was? Because, I think it was kind of good. Well, there you go then. But he's very to the point. He's very cut and dry, and I love it. I'm here for it. And I loved his very honest assessment on the squads. I love the fact that he didn't hold back. He was just very honest. He was very approachable, and he gave quotes for days. I think, which I think is a joy, and I'm really liking it because it just shows the mentality that he's at and where he wants his players to be at.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I asked him about because before the game he said he was looking forward to the hot atmosphere at Leeds because I guess when Ellen Road does get going, it really does get bouncing. It can be if it this is a stupid comment, but if it had a roof, it might blow off every now and again. But basically he said after the match, when I asked him, like, how did you think your team sort of dealt with that atmosphere, and do you think that you can learn from that? Because touch wood, if Brighton get into Europe, there could be those sort of fearsome nights across the continent where you play some great teams, and you have to get used to those sort of cauldrons or bear pits type thing. So he basically said he thought his team handled it like lions. I wasn't quite sure if that meant like he was like a lion tamer or anyway, but it was definitely shows that he's pretty authentic. But interesting enough, he actually also said that this result against Leeds was probably one of the most disappointing results he's had since he's been at the club. He put it, I think, on a par with the Fulham smash and grab and the Palace draw from last month. And similar, Solly March basically said it is a sign of how Brighton have progressed, that in the past they would have been content with a point from coming away from Ellen Road, but this time they were bitterly disappointed. So the expectations are definitely growing, but also if you want to get into Europe, the results have to be even better. And I do think that they can't have too many of these days. I think Brighton weren't at their best. They were still pretty good at times. Like, some of their passing was fantastic, but McAllister, I think, could have had a hat trick. Really, he spurned a couple of good opportunities. Welbeck danced through the defence in the second half, and I was about to write goal, and then I sounded a bit like Alan Partridge, like goal. But anyway, I really thought that he was, because he just kind of left. I think it was Wober and Koch, basically very flat-footed, went into the box, and I was just expecting the net just to ripple, and he just sent it over the bar. I was like, oh, and they had other opportunities. I think Veltman was close. March, as we said before, they definitely had more chances to win it. But now it will be key to see how they bounce back against Palace, because obviously they are not in a good state. And I don't know, do you think Brighton will tweak things? Because obviously Webster came off late on with what looked like a hamstring issue. De Zerbi said it didn't look too serious, but do you think we'll shake things up for Palace, or what do you reckon?
I think we probably have to. I think we have to anyway. We've got that, and then we've got Grimsby at home on Sunday. So that Leeds and Palace will be two very, very intense matches, and then you've got a potential banana skin in the FA Cup again at home to Grimsby Town, who they've had their fair share of cup sets and scalps in this season's competition. So Sorry. It's fair to say that we need to actually make the most of the opportunity and just get some fresh legs involved, because Webster's injured. Cole will slowly get in there, which is great, but I don't think he's fit enough for full 90 minutes, and I'm sure De Zerbi's going to probably confirm that tomorrow in his press conference. I just can't see Webster being forced to play, because I think if we do, then I think we're just going to do nothing more than just worsen the injury, and then we're on the back stick against Palace, and I think that's the worst possible scenario we could put ourselves in. Ultimately, we need a morale boost for sure. I'm not saying that the morale is bad, but we just definitely need that kind of like reassurance that, you know, we're on the right track here, we've got the right mentality, and we've got the right setup here. And to do that, we need to get the most out of Palace, because yes, while that game is it's the big match, it's the rivalry, at the same time we need 3 points just to really kind of like assert ourselves of being European challengers.
One thing I just want to, before we go on to Palace properly, I want to get your thoughts on. So De Zerbi, after the game, he talked about Evan Ferguson's performance, and I thought he really got stuck in. He had some good battles with the lead centre back Wöber. Sorry if I'm butchering that, as usual. But I think it was a difficult afternoon is a bit strong, but it was a real sort of 50-50 battle, I thought. And De Zerbi actually said some comments that I thought was, I don't know if it's harsh, but he basically said Ferguson is 18, and on Saturday he played a very difficult game, and from this game, Ferguson can improve a lot. I think he will remember this game for a long time. I'm not quite sure if I may be reading into it that too much, and potentially it's just because of the atmosphere and I guess the occasion. But what do you make of those remarks and his performance as a whole, as a general?
I think the performance overall, I think he did his job well. I think he got himself into the spaces that he needed to. I think his reason of the game for an 18-year-old is just, I think it's fantastic. The way he reads it and the way he's able to apply himself from a tactical point of view is very, very, very good for a player, not only of his age, but also because of his inexperience, shall we say, of the game. Able to make himself shooing Zerbi, who is a tactician at the end of the day, which can make the average footballer a bit confused about what he needs to do, because he's kind of reasoning into their own game. He's able to incorporate his own game into De Zerbi's game, and that does well. What I think De Zerbi's looking at in terms of these, in terms of comments, is it was definitely, I think it's more about the mentality that he has to, the mental challenge that he's facing. De Zerbi is very, very focused on, mentality. He's very big on that. And I think Ferguson just needs to appreciate the fact that he's going to have those tough occasions. He's going to have those matches where he might be having tough battles and he's going to have tough moments. And it's important that he just needs to focus and he needs to appreciate the challenge. He needs to go in and go, fantastic, I've got a challenge here today, boys. Right, let's go for it. Let's up my game. I think that's what De Zerbi means by those comments, because if you want to become a top striker in the Premier League and become one of Europe's elite, then you've got to be able to appreciate that you're not going to get 5 or 6 chances. You get to bury 1 or 2. You're going to have to get 2 or 3 chances, and you have to bury them all. And that is the difference when you look at him in comparison to like a young Erling Haaland, younger Erling Haaland, for instance. There's a mentality there that you see from the elite striker that you can sort of see with Ferguson just pushing through, and De Zerbi's just really focused on pushing that understanding that it's okay to think this way, but you've got to make sure that you push yourself to that absolute limit. Because Ferguson, he didn't get a lot of service, I don't think. And I think he's been trying to chase those opportunities and chase those spaces where he can and try and get himself as many opportunities as he can. But I think other teams are reasoning it well to isolate him. So he has to think on his feet a little bit more and just find that answer in seconds rather than minutes.
Yeah, I think conversely, I think players who I thought were pretty impressive were, I thought Solly March played very well. I thought, and you're like this, I thought Pascal Gross didn't put a foot wrong. I thought he was just lovely. Obviously, he was key for the first goal. You're smiling already when I mentioned his name. And Matoma was obviously really good. He definitely got the better of Luke Ayling on the right. One, obviously... Oh. Oh, there we go. So yes, sorry. Actually, I should say sorry. You should say sorry. No, joking. So yeah, one let's say contested or disputed moment from the game was Leeds' second goal. Harrison's equaliser late on. So the sort of debate sprung up around the fact that when Gnonto took the corner, literally like within milliseconds or a second or so of him taking it, he, I think, slapped a ball off the pitch. And then obviously seconds later, Harrison's curled that really nice strike into the top corner. So De Zerbi said after the game there were two balls on the pitch. The implication that, you know, it shouldn't have been allowed. Solly March basically said, well, because he slapped the ball out of play, that is interfering in play. I spoke to former ref Mark Housey this morning, and he basically said that I think it's called Law 5 in the FA's rules. It said outside interference states that play should only be stopped if the second ball interferes with play and prevents a defending player from playing the ball. In this case, the second ball doesn't have an impact on the play. So I guess from that, it maybe it was the right call. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, obviously spot on. Solly March can claim that he is interfering with play because he slapped the ball away, but really it's not. That's not where the law is going in terms of the direction of interfering with play, because it's not directly involved in that phase of play. So the only way for that to happen is if that in that motion, in that phase of play, that second ball does distract the defender, does distract the player from the motion of their decision making, because there are two balls right in front of them. That is what the law means in terms of that. So I'm not that annoyed by it. I'm frustrated, don't get me wrong. Like the fact that there was a point where the two footballs were on the pitch in the Premier League is absolutely schoolboy, and it shouldn't happen at that level. It shouldn't happen at any level really, because it's basics. It's basic stuff. It's the equivalent of like having your go in Monopoly and you're only rolling one of the dice, not both of them. So
exactly the same, mate.
Absolutely. It's just basics. It's basic understanding. I think there had to be a degree of common sense there from the referee, and I think he got it right. Sadly, we're on the losing end of that. But you know, we can't go down this slippery slope of blaming the result on just one impact, because there were so many other moments that we had where we could have controlled this game so well that by the time that happened, it was insignificant. It would have been just a little comedy moment that we would have joked about on Twitter, but it's not, because of how significant that goal's had on the game.
Yeah, well, hopefully, as we say, Brighton can put that right, and they can try to do that on Wednesday when they host bitter rivals Crystal Palace at the Amex. So, obviously, it was Brighton were essentially robbed in the last game, the 1-0 draw, because they've later PGMOL have later come out and said, obviously, Purvis Estupiñán's goal against Palace was wrongly ruled out for being offside. Brighton take on Palace, arguably in a place where Palace are maybe even, are in a worse state than they were a month or so ago, because they've really been drawn right back into the relegation scrap. They are 12th, but I believe, just have a look at the table here, they're only 3 points above the relegation zone. It's mad how close it is between 12th and 20th. Only 5 points separate those teams. So really, it's a proper dogfight. Palace haven't won in 2023 in all competitions. I believe that was their defeat to Man City at the weekend was their third straight game without a shot on target. It really feels that sort of the Vieira project is not going well. I'm going to hand over to Tom, who's a little bit smug. But obviously, we all know that kind of form has very little bearing on this fixture in the last few years. Tom, is it finally the time when Brighton get one over on Palace?
I think it's the best opportunity we have had, really, in years. Basically, look, we've seen it in the past. The fact that whoever's in the most informed team goes into this match, they just don't get the result that they deserve. I'm yet to think of a match where either team has won it and they deserved it since we've been in the Premier League. Honestly, I can't think of what. I think probably the match at home when Ndoni scored and Balogun scored with his first time, that's probably one, I would say, though I'm sure people in South East London will strongly disagree. Losing to 10-man Brighton, and 10-man Brighton deserved that performance. You know, that's fine. But really, there hasn't really been a win. And I know I'm echoing what I've said from the first match earlier on, only a few weeks ago. This is a game where it's just like, nah, form's out the window, stats are out the window. You know, we could dominate with this game as much as we like. We can't seem to win. You know, we talked about McAllister could have got a hat-trick against Leeds. He could have got a hat-trick at Palace. We could be talking about a guy who's playing central midfield and has got 2 hat-tricks already to his name in space of a month, or just after winning the World Cup, which would have been bloody marvellous if you ask me. But we're not in that position. And I just can't help but feel that this is the best opportunity we've had to not just win, but absolutely spank Palace. Absolutely just take them apart and just like solidify their situation in which they are in a relegation dogfight. I would love it nothing more than to be. I know I sound like Kevin Keegan then. But
with a sore throat.
Yeah, and a sore throat. Yeah. I sound like Sean Dyche then for a bit.
Eating some worms.
Yeah, exactly. So we're in this fantastic position where we can win it. I think De Zerbi clearly understands the game. I think he clearly understood it for sure when he went to Selhurst Park. I think now that we're welcoming him into our own back garden, I think he's going to be more prepared than ever to make sure that, you know, we send a message loud and clear to our rivals, not just Palace, but also our European rivals as well, that we mean serious business. We're targeting Europe. You know, Caicedo said Champions League, but, you know, and any European competition will do me, Richie. If we we're
not picky.
If we can get this win against Palace under our belts, I think that will just raise morale here, there, and everywhere. Every single corner of the ground will be buzzing. Every single non-playing staff member will be jumping the morning after. That the fixture will just have such a huge bearing in it. And I do think, looking at our results, this is the kind of match we're going to have to look back on and think this defined our season.
Yeah, I think that's the sun is playing havoc here. With us moving all over the place. There you go. Hang on.
He's moving about. He's moving about his camera, guys.
One sec. We can edit this out.
We're professional as ever here. But for those who are listening on audio, Richie's just putting the blinds down.
Yeah, the sun just came out. Very briefly. I agree with a lot of that. I think obviously Brighton on the I'm just looking at the table. Brighton have played 24 games. Everyone has played at least one game more than Brighton. So, and obviously we're still, we've talked about this before. There will be some rearrangements with those delayed games. So there might be times, well, there will be times coming up when Brighton will have to play 3 games in a week, which is obviously going to be pretty demanding. This is the last game in the league before the international break. So hopefully, you know, we talked about Webster. Maybe that gives him time to recover and then be ready for Brentford at the start of April. But yes, if Brighton can beat Palace, they go level on points with Liverpool and they have a game in hand in 6th. So they'll just be behind, well, depending on the result. If I believe if Brighton put 4 past Palace to 0, they will go 6th. I mean, that would be unbelievable. But let's not tempt fate. But yeah, so Palace are in really, really bad form. They're not bad defensively, but they just can't score or create chances at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe them trying to just go for a point, you know, get loads of men behind the ball. But yeah, if you can't, you know, you won't be able to beat a team in the relegation zone who obviously did play fairly well. But yeah, not picking up a win against another team down the bottom will, I think, in the long term, that doesn't bear particularly well or bode well, sorry, for their chances of getting Europe. So yeah, I think selection will be interesting. You know, will Lamptey be able to? Will Lamptey be back fit potentially at right back? You know, obviously, will Van Heck or Colwill be okay if Webster can't? I think the midfield's pretty settled with McAllister, Caicedo, and Gross. That's pretty impressive. And I do actually think that Welbeck, despite his sort of misses, because I think there was another one when he tried to go around Meslier, the keeper, and couldn't quite. You know, there might be a bit of debate over if Ferguson or Welbeck starts. I'd maybe start Ferguson just again. But yeah, if Brighton want to get Europe, they have to win on Wednesday. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Echoing what we're saying all the time. And I think right there, we'll leave it there because
we're getting to broken record territory.
Yeah, we're going to broken record territory, but it's going to be a nerve-wracking week, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Palace at home and then Grimsby Town at home. We are 90 minutes away again to level on points with Liverpool and another 90 minutes away from Wembley. So enjoy this one, guys. Take care. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe on teams like Brighton. Take care.